Level 1, Script Kiddie. Imagine being 16 in Akron, Ohio, and watching your mom discover that $1,140 has vanished from her bank account. She checks the balance, refreshes, checks again. Same number. Gone. She starts doing the math on the back of a Walmart receipt. Rent, groceries, electricity. You don't have a job. You can't replace it. So you do the only thing you think you can do. You try to find whoever took it. You download 9 hacking tools from a forum. 2 are in Russian. You understand none of them. 1 infects the family's Dell laptop. 3 weeks later, you've learned absolutely nothing. Then at 2:13 in the morning, your screen moves by itself. A window opens. No program launched it. No mouse touched it. And 3 words appear. You're looking for me. You freeze. Then another line appears. You're not very good. You stare at the screen. A final message appears. But you're the only one who noticed. Signed with 1 letter. M, you should shut the computer off. Instead, you type. Who are you? 3 dots appear. Then disappear. Then appear again. And M sends you an address. Not a website. Not an IP. Your own. Your home address. Level 2, account thief. You don't call the police. You don't tell your mom. You write his line on masking tape and stick it over the webcam. 3 days later, he sends you a text file and 8 words. No hello. No lesson. No here's how this works. Just an attachment holding 400 email addresses and 400 passwords. Lifted out of a dating site that got breached 2 years before you'd heard of it. And 1 line underneath. People reuse. Try them somewhere that sells something. That's the whole education. A man robs your mother, insults you, hands you a loaded thing, and walks off without checking whether you picked it up. You pick it up. You need a name to work under. You want Spectre. Spectre is taken, so you add an underscore and assume nobody will ever care about a punctuation mark. Here's the part nobody tells you about the bottom rung. You are not hacking anything. You are typing other people's passwords into other people's websites. There is no skill in it. It is walking down a street pulling car door handles. And the genuinely disturbing part, the part that changes how you look at people for the rest of your life, is how many of them open. Every kid at this stage believes he's become dangerous. He hasn't. He's become a nuisance with a list. You are not special. The first money is $60, not cash. Amazon gift cards, because that's how everybody starts, and nobody admits it afterward. $60 in gift cards for something you'd have done for free. And you spend 3 days walking around your school feeling like a criminal mastermind over the price of 1 shift at Kroger. Then you get sloppy. You go into an account at 2 in the morning and a notification fires. A small email to a phone you never thought about, on a nightstand you've never seen, in a house you couldn't find on a map. It lights up next to somebody's head. Nothing happens. Nobody comes. But you spend that whole night on the floor of your bedroom with the lights off, completely certain the door is about to come off its hinges. And somewhere around 4 in the morning you catch yourself actually wishing that there was no you. No name, no address, nobody able to reach you at all. It passes by breakfast. You will spend the next 20 years and $31 million trying to get that feeling back on purpose. What you actually learn that night isn't technical. It's that the danger is never the machine. The danger is a person noticing something at the wrong moment. 3 weeks later, you open an account that isn't a target. It's a woman's spreadsheet, household budget updated every Sunday, color-coded, groceries, gas, the Geico bill, and a column for a kid's asthma inhaler with the copay typed in twice, once at the old price, once at the new one, because the new one broke the month. You have seen that math before. You watched it happen on the back of a receipt at a kitchen table, out loud, 3 times, by a woman who thought saying it again might change it. You are now the thing that happened to your mother. You sit with that for a while. Then you do it anyway. That's the part you'll never be able to explain to anyone later when they ask how a person ends up like this. It isn't the first crime. Anybody can rationalize the first one. It's the second the one you commit after you already know exactly what it feels like from the other end. And you're good at it. Good enough that someone in a channel you barely speak in messages you privately and asks, in the flat way these people ask everything, whether you could get inside something bigger than an account. A whole company. You say yes. You have no idea how. Level 3, System Intruder. The first company you ever get inside is a trucking outfit outside Toledo. 41 employees, 2 yards, 1 office, a dispatch system still running Windows XP, and you are inside all of it. Here's what nobody tells you about being inside a company. It's boring. Astonishingly boring. You pictured a control room. What you get is a shared drive with 200 folders on it, one named final_V3, a dispatcher's request for the Friday before Thanksgiving off, and a spreadsheet of everyone's birthday so the office knows when to buy a Costco sheet cake. It took you 9 months to get into a building, and buildings turn out to be mostly full of paperwork. Then the real problem. You have no idea what any of this is worth. You can see their money. You can't take their money. That's a different profession, with its own people and its own ways of getting caught. You're a kid in an unlocked warehouse at 2 a.m. with no truck, holding a door, with no idea what a door costs. You sit on it for 6 weeks. The most valuable thing you have ever had, going stale. Then Marcus surfaces. 14 months of silence, not one word since the tape went on the webcam, and he comes back with the most expensive sentence anybody will ever say to you. You don't have to go through the door. Sell the door. 9 minutes. That's how long the listing is up before someone takes it. 9 minutes. $4,000. More than your mother clears in a month. For something you'd sat on for 6 weeks because you assumed the only way to get paid was to do the crime yourself. That's the moment the world gets bigger. Not the money, the shape of it. Above every kid pulling door handles is a layer of people who buy doors. And above them people who buy from them, and the whole structure runs on one arrangement. Nobody at any level ever has to see the end of it. You don't have to commit the crime. You can sell the room the crime happens in. The first thing you buy is a ThinkPad of your own, refurbished off eBay. And before you've finished setting it up, you peel the tape off the old one and press it over the new webcam. Same tape, same handwriting. You don't ask why. 6 weeks later, you find out what your buyer did with it. The payroll doesn't run. 41 people don't get paid on a Friday, and then don't get paid on the Friday after that. There's a local news item, 90 seconds long, between a weather segment and a Brown score. A dispatcher who's worked there 19 years says on camera that he's sure it'll be sorted by the end of the month. It isn't. The company is sold for parts before Christmas, and the family that owned it for 2 generations walks away owing money to people they'd known their whole lives. 41 households rearrange around a Friday that didn't happen, and none will ever learn the reason was a 19-year-old who wanted $4,000. You didn't do that. You handed somebody a key and looked out the window. You'll spend years on that distinction. You'll get very comfortable inside it. And much later you'll understand it was never a distinction to anybody but you. So you raise your price. Half your buyers disappear overnight, which tells you something. One of the ones who stays has never haggled with you about anything ever, which tells you considerably more. That same week, in a channel where an old operator called Kettle almost never types anything, he says to nobody, about nothing, that this business has exactly 2 exits. A sell, or getting good enough that nobody can prove you were ever born. You're 19 years old and you just made $4,000 in 9 minutes. You laugh at it. Level 4, exploit broker? The man who never haggles turns out to be a different business entirely. He doesn't want doors. He wants the thing that makes doors. A flaw, one mistake inside one piece of software that nobody has found yet, which isn't a key to a building. It's a key to every building running it. He asks whether you can find one. You say yes without knowing how, which is apparently your only move. It takes 11 days. 11 days of reading the same few thousand lines the way other people read a difficult book, until the shape of somebody else's thinking comes through and you can see the exact spot where a tired person made a small assumption on a Thursday afternoon in a year when you were still in middle school. And then it works. Nobody claps. There's nobody in the room. There's nobody to call, because no one in your life knows what you do, and the 2 people who know your handle would treat a phone call as a security incident. So you sit in a rented room in Cleveland at 4 a.m, grinning at a screen like an idiot, alone, and it is the happiest you have ever been. People get that part wrong. They assume it's greed the whole way down. It isn't. For about 11 days, right in the middle of a descent, it is the purest work you will ever do. Then you learn the rules of the market you just walked into. You never mention the weather, never a holiday, never what time it is where you are, or a sports result, or a power cut, or how hot it's been. Every one of those is a coordinate. You stop using contractions, because the way a man shortens his words is a way a man can be found. Your written English gets flatter every year, on purpose. You have 3 phones and no friends, and this has started to feel normal. Kettle is in 2 of the same rooms you are now. He has never acknowledged you exist. You check anyway. 3rd machine in 4 years. The tape comes off the 2nd and goes on to this one. And holding it up to the light, you notice the ballpoint has started to go. You can still read all of it. You won't always be able to. You sell the flaw for $40,000. For 11 days you are wealthy. You're 22, you have $40,000, and you buy a used Civic outright because the idea of a credit check makes you sweat. You finally understand what you're worth. Then you watch it move, bundled with 2 other things. Renamed, resold, resold again. By the time it stops traveling, it has picked up an extra digit and passed through 3 men who could not have found that flaw with a map and a flashlight. You weren't underpaid. You were positioned. It takes another year to say the rest out loud. Being good at this pays a fraction of what it pays to be standing in the right place when somebody good hands you something. You ask a buyer once what it's for. Don't ask. You'll price it differently and I'll notice. 9 words. You never ask again. And inside of a year, the no-tasking has turned into something you're quietly proud of. A professionalism. A discipline. That's the one you should have been afraid of. Somewhere in that stretch you work out there are people above you in this. Not better at finding flaws, just closer to whoever is buying. You will never meet them. You will never learn a name. You work for them for 3 years anyway. Then the message arrives. Not from him, from a group you've only heard about, and the offer is plain enough that it takes a second to register that it's a promotion. Stop selling tools to the people who use them. Come use them. Your cut, not your fee. Let me say one thing and then I will not bring it up again. A lot of you asked how I make this style of YouTube videos, so I gathered all my tactics for starting a channel like mine in this guide. If you want it, the link's below. Now let's get back to the video. Level 5 Cybercrime Operator. You expected hackers. There is an onboarding document. 11 pages, roles, escalation paths, a section on communications discipline, and a paragraph near the back laying out the payout schedule in the reasonable tone of an organization that has had trouble with this before. There's an accountant, an actual accountant who is not a hacker, has never been a hacker, and who spends an evening explaining why a cash-out route you like is inefficient. He is right. There's a negotiator. And there is a man whose entire job, his only job, full-time, is writing the note. Not the code, the note. Because polite ones get paid faster and professional ones get paid more. And somebody worked out that a company pays quicker when the letter reads like it came from a vendor. He's very good. He's the best paid person in the room. Which brings you to the second discovery, and it's the one that stings. You are not the smartest person here. You have been the best hacker in every room you've ever stood in, mostly because they were small rooms with children in them. In this one, you're a specialist, a component. You do your part, you hand it off, and somebody you will never meet does the next part. For the first time in your life, you are being managed. Then it happens live. A mid-sized logistics company outside Memphis on a Tuesday, for no reason except that it was reachable. And you watch it land in real time. Trucks stopped at gates because nobody can generate a release. A dispatcher calling a number that doesn't answer anymore. 200 people who came to work and can't work. In the channel, your colleagues are pricing it. He'll fold by Thursday. He always says we're a family business first. He does both things. He says the family business line on Wednesday and pays on Thursday afternoon. And somebody drops a single emoji in the channel and the conversation moves to the next one. That's the day you understand what you actually joined. Not a gang. A pipeline with a quarterly rhythm and a guy who writes polite letters. There is one thing you can touch. A regional hospital supplier is tangled into the same access, not a target, a neighbor who shares a wall. Somebody would pull them in eventually because somebody always does. So you break it out of scope. Quietly. You flag the segment as unreliable, technically awkward, not worth the hours, and nobody argues because nobody cares enough to check. It cost the operation nothing at all. It cost you exactly what you expected it to. Twice in the next month you get overruled by men who have decided you've gone soft on calls where 6 months ago you'd have been listened to. You take it. You never explain because explaining means saying why, and saying why tells them who you are. You never mention it to anyone, not once in 20 years. You ask once what your share would look like if you brought in a target yourself. It takes 3 days to come back, and it isn't a number. It's a short, polite paragraph about what you were brought in to do. You have a chair. That's the entire answer. Then, on a Thursday, your leader stops answering. 3 days later, his infrastructure is gone, and so is he. Arrested, burned, dead, walked away with all of it, nobody ever finds out. And asking is itself a risk. So inside of 2 weeks, people simply stop saying his name. But the pipeline has a rhythm, and a payroll, and 30 people who still expect to be paid on schedule. So there's a call, and everyone on it turns slowly toward the one who never talks. Level 6, Phantom Kingpin. Nobody fights you for it. That should have been the first clue. 38 people, an infrastructure, a name that frightens mid-sized companies on 2 continents, and not one wants the chair. You think it's respect. It takes a month to work out it was relief. Because here's what nobody tells you about running one of these. You stop hacking. You haven't touched anything in 7 months. You approve expenses. You recruit, which mostly means finding quiet 19-year-olds who remind you of somebody. You settle the same argument between grown men about percentages, endlessly, in slightly different words. You have a guy who won't stop bragging on a forum, and you spend a full week deciding whether to remove him from the internet or just from the group. The week isn't about morality. It's about which causes fewer problems next quarter. You are an HR department for felons. The money is absurd. You move somewhere around $40 million a year. Here's what $40 million a year buys you. No photographs of anything, ever. No image of your own life after the age of 24. No dentist, because dental records are records. No relationship you could explain in a sentence. You tried twice. Both times you watched a person work out that every answer you gave was a shape with nothing inside it, and both times they left before you had to do anything. You're 31 years old, and no document on this earth connects the man who moves $40 million a year to the man asleep in a rented apartment in Bucharest. Which is the point. Which is the thing you built. The tape is on a laptop you open twice a month now. Most of it has gone. You could write the line out from memory, and you don't. Then you do the thing you've been climbing toward for 15 years, and don't let yourself notice. That's what it is. You clear your mother's house. All of it, quietly by a route she could never trace, wrapped in enough paper that it looks like something ordinary happened to her. $1,140 once broke that woman at a kitchen table with a pen in her hand. You pay off what Wells Fargo is owed on a Tuesday afternoon from 5,000 miles away, and it costs less than the crew spends on hosting. She calls you. She isn't happy. She's frightened. She wants to know where it came from, and she asks in the voice of a person who has already guessed and is giving you one chance to say something else. You can't answer. 15 years of operational discipline and not one sentence for your own mother. She stops calling. You bought her freedom and paid for it with her. Around then, Kettle comes back. He's old. He's been at this since before it had a name, and in 9 years he has said maybe 40 words to you. Nobody retires in this. They just get quiet enough that people stop checking. So you do something you haven't done since you were 16. You ask a straight question, no posturing, no handle voice. How would a man actually do that? How would you get out? He replies with a single character. That's the whole answer. And then he's gone. Not arrested, not burned, not angry. Just gone, permanently. The way people go in this world, and it takes a year to understand you spent the only man who could have told you on a question you asked 8 years too early. Then, in March, a security researcher publishes a paper. No names in it. Nothing you could point at. A timeline. A set of habits. A list of things this person never does, never mentions weather, never uses contractions, keeps these hours, avoids these words. And a handle with an underscore on the end of it, because Spectre was taken when you were 16. They don't have you. They have your shape. And once they have your shape, everything after it is arithmetic. Level 7, most wanted. The paper charges nobody. That's what you tell yourself for 6 weeks. It's true. It's also completely beside the point. Here's what that paper actually did. Before it, you were 40 separate open cases in 11 jurisdictions, and nobody had reason to think they were the same man. A fraud file in one country. An intrusion in another. A payment nobody could place. Small, unsolved things that add up to nothing, because the only thing connecting them is a man's habits, and habits aren't evidence. After it, you are one defendant. That is the whole difference between being unknown and being indicted, and a stranger with a blog did it in 8 months. They unseal it on a Wednesday, Eastern District of Virginia. And there it is, formatted and numbered and footnoted like a piece of scholarship. Spectre, underscore included. A punctuation mark you added at 16 because somebody else got the good name first. You move $40 million a year. You have men on 3 continents who do what you tell them. And the thing that follows you for the rest of your life is a keystroke you typed out of teenage disappointment in your mother's house. Then you read the rest, and it gets worse. They don't have your face. They have never had your face. What they have is a list of things you don't do. You never mention weather. You never use contractions. You keep these hours. You avoid these words. You go quiet on these days. 15 years of discipline, every single rule you built to make yourself unfindable printed in a numbered paragraph as an identifying characteristic. Your discipline is the fingerprint. That's the joke. There is nobody in the world available for you to tell it to. What happens next isn't dramatic, and it doesn't stop. Every message is now possibly a cop. Not probably possibly, which is worse because probably you could act on. Old contacts turn chatty. A man you have done 60 jobs with asks a question he already knows the answer to, and you sit looking at it for 11 minutes. You reread 6 months of conversations at 3 in the morning, hunting the exact message where somebody's tone changed. You find 11. 9 of them are nothing. You know that. You're almost certain of that. You cannot tell which 2 aren't. Then you work out who flipped. It's a kid you trained. Came up the way you did, broke, quiet, better than he knew, and somebody put a choice in front of him you'd have taken in a heartbeat at his age. He has 2 children. You know their ages because you asked once, being friendly. You have 30 people who would act on a 2-word request. You do nothing. You don't confront him. You don't cut him out. You don't tell anyone you know, because telling anyone means somebody else decides. And it costs you, precisely, measurably, week by week, because he keeps talking. For another 7 months he keeps talking, and each week he hands over one more small true thing, and each one pulls the circle in another inch. You can watch it closing. You have the logs. You know exactly how much of your own life he's given away by Thursday of any given week. You chose that. And then you keep choosing it. In the second month you read the indictment again, cover to cover, looking for one name. You haven't thought about him in years. You look anyway. Marcus isn't in it. Not as a defendant. Not as a co-conspirator. Not as an unnamed party. Not as a footnote. He is bigger than you, and has been for a decade, louder, less careful, considerably easier to find. And no government on this earth appears to have noticed him, which doesn't mean they haven't. It means somebody decided not to. Then a message arrives at an address that should not be reachable, from a sender that should not exist, offering the one thing nobody in your world is able to offer. The file stops moving. All of it. You keep breathing, you keep working, and the thing with your name on it simply stops. There's a number attached. It isn't a fee. It's a salary. Level 8, Shadow Emperor? They keep their word, and that's the frightening part. The file stops. Not dismissed, not withdrawn, nobody signs anything. Nobody tells you it's finished. It stops moving the way a clock stops, and you spend 3 months waiting to hear it start again. You expected a war room. You get an office park in Northern Virginia with a parking allocation. There are timesheets. There's a code you punch to get onto the second floor, a woman at a desk who says good morning, and a fridge with a note on it about somebody's chobani. There's a badge with a photograph on it. The first photograph taken of you in 9 years, and you had to look into the camera and hold still and, at one point, smile. You have moved $40 million a year through networks nobody could follow. You are now on $9,400 a month, before deductions. Nobody in the building thinks that's funny. You try it once dry on a colleague, and he looks at you like you're speaking a language he doesn't have. It isn't a joke. It's a pay band. Then the work starts, and the floor goes out from under you in a way no amount of money prepares you for. You don't pick targets. You have never once in your life not picked targets. And the targets aren't companies. There's no note, no negotiator. Nobody here is trying to get paid, and it takes you an embarrassing amount of time to understand what that means. For 15 years, every terrible thing you did had a price on it. A price is a limit. Somebody could always pay, and it would stop. Nothing here has a price on it. There's a list. There's a schedule. And you never learn what happens afterward, which used to be something you chose, a discipline you were proud of, and is now something you are permitted. So you try to refuse one, not dramatically. You've never made a speech in your life. You raise a technical objection. The professional way the access is unreliable. The approach is fragile. The risk doesn't justify the return. It's accepted, politely. Somebody thanks you for flagging it. Then, over the next 3 weeks, 4 small administrative things about your life quietly change. None are explained. None are threatening. All are completely reversible, and every one is a sentence a person could say out loud in a meeting without embarrassment. Nobody threatens you. Nobody has to. You do the job. That's the day you understand the arrangement, and it's the simplest thing in the world. You have more power than you've ever had and fewer options than you had at 16. At 16, you could have called the bank. You find Marcus in the 3rd month, on an internal directory. Not a handle. A full name, a middle initial, a desk number. 20 years of a man who was one letter, and this building has had him filed the whole time. Then you see him. Corridor, coffee, no hurry. Different arrangement better than yours, and considerably older. He has been on this side since before your indictment. Possibly since before the paper. Possibly a great deal longer. He doesn't gloat. He doesn't even break stride. Took you long enough. Full words, and he's past you, and you're standing there holding a badge with your own face on it, understanding you spent 20 years climbing a ladder to arrive where he was already standing. Later that year, in an archive you have no business reading, you go looking for yourself. You find something else. An intrusion logged 19 years ago. Small, domestic, financial. Entirely the wrong scale for a file like this, the kind of thing that doesn't get investigated, doesn't get recorded, doesn't get kept. A handle you recognize, and a date you recognize because the next morning a woman sat at a kitchen table and did the same arithmetic 3 times on the back of a receipt. You close it. You tell yourself you'll come back to it. That night, for the first time in 20 years, there is nothing above you. Nothing to climb toward, nobody to beat, no tomorrow that differs from today in any way that matters. So you finally ask the question you've been outrunning since you were 16. What was any of this for? And then, very quietly, on your own time, you start working out how a person actually leaves. Level 9 retired ghost. It takes 11 months, and almost none of it is interesting. That's the part nobody tells you about disappearing. There's no chase. Nobody kicks a door. You spend the better part of a year making a person stop existing the way other people plan a wedding appointments, documents, patience, and a great deal of money paid to quiet men who each do one small legal thing and never meet one another. 11 months of paperwork to undo 20 years of being somebody. And when it's finished, here's what you have. $31 million that cannot be touched by a man who does not exist. You have more money than your mother could hold in her head and no name to spend it under. You'll never hold a mortgage, finance a Honda, sit in a Geico office, or be listed anywhere as anybody's next of kin. That was the price, and you paid it without arguing, because you'd been paying an installment since you were 24. And this was the last one. There's one thing left on the list, the Dell. 20 years, 4 countries, 7 apartments, a machine that hasn't powered on in a decade, that does nothing, that you have carried the way people carry a body and you know exactly why you kept it, and you have never once said it out loud. The tape came back to it years ago, off the last laptop, onto the first, on a night you didn't examine. You peel it off the webcam, the ballpoint is almost gone. 20 years of thumbs and heat and moving. But you can still make out one word in the middle of it, noticed. And before you destroy it, you finally do the thing you've been walking away from since you were 16 years old. You read the logs. 2 decades of skill pointed at 19-year-old evidence, and it takes under an hour. A kid couldn't have done it. A kid didn't. The man you turned into does it before the coffee goes cold. It was Marcus. He took your mother's $1,140. And it's the amount that finishes you because $1,100 was nothing to him even then. It was never a robbery. He needed to know whether the kid on the other end of that machine would notice something that small, and then he sat there and waited 3 weeks to find out whether the kid would keep looking. You did. That's the whole story. That's all it ever was. The breach wasn't the crime. The breach was the interview. You destroy it anyway. The machine, the tape, the drives, the handle. 20 years of Spectre underscore and the underscore that ended up in a federal document. Gone in an afternoon, and the strange thing, the thing you'll turn over for months afterward, is how little any of it weighs. Then a new phone. A $40 Nokia, clean, unopened, bought by nobody, tied to nothing, sitting on a table in a rented kitchen in Porto. 11 days later it lights up. Once. You finally made it, M. He isn't congratulating you. He's telling you that you're finally worth his attention. And that the one thing you spent 20 years and $31 million building the ability to not be found does not work, and never worked on the only man it ever needed to work on. Somewhere out there, a woman still has her house. She doesn't know why. And you sit at a kitchen table with a pen in the back of a receipt doing the arithmetic 3 times, the way she used to. Same table, same math. You have everything. It buys nothing. If you like this story, subscribe for more and comment below what story I should do next.